We are live.
Start talking.
Hey guys, how are you? Welcome to Helping the Brave. You are here today with our hosts, Mr. Mohawk Matt Denny and Ed Park Co. And we have a very, very special guest today, Mr. Brian Fleming. How are you today, Brian?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for all of our listeners out there, I got the opportunity to listen to Brian at a VA rep conference, leadership conference several years ago, and I was just in awe of everything that he said and very wowed by him, very resilient. And I wanted him here today to be able to speak with you and all of the veterans and listeners about everything that he's doing for veterans, about the books that he has published, and what he's also doing with his wife and helping others with counseling as well. So, Brian, let's get started and talk to me a little bit about your resilience booklet.
Yeah, everybody goes through difficult times in life. Everybody faces challenges, and the worst ones are usually the ones you don't see coming. And, over the past year, everyone got a little taste of that out of the ordinary for sure. And, after I was injured, and I'll tell you more about my injury story, but after I was injured in the military, I found that, I was able to overcome a lot of the issues pretty quickly and to a pretty great extent. And I didn't exactly know what was going on in my life that made that happen. I just sort of knew how my story went, and it was going quite different from quite a few other guys I knew who were injured in the war to varying extents. And, after 4, 5, 6 years out of the military, looking back on my life, I just wondered, what made the difference in my life that I was able to move forward productively in life, and a number of other people are not. And it bothered me because I was out speaking already for 4 or 5 years. I'd written a couple of books already. And a lot of people would say things like, Brian, what was that? The one thing that helped you get past it all and bounce back and overcome? And there really wasn't one thing. And I never quite had a clear answer. And so that really bothered me, because what people were really asking was, can you give me a tip for winning my battle that I'm going through? Because they wanted to know what I did that maybe they could apply to their life to overcome their struggle. And so what I did was, I had studied people throughout history, from war vets to prison camp survivors, Nazi Holocaust survivors, to people who just overcome abuse and all these different things. Then I looked at some of my friends from the military who had gotten past a lot of these things. And I looked at my own life, and I just started looking. I was trying to see what common things did we have? What was there certain ways we thought, things we did? What were the things we had in common that may be signposts and indicators of how we were all able to overcome to such a great extent and move beyond whatever hurt us? And that's what the resilience booklet is about. It's the shortest book I ever wrote, and I did that intentionally. I created this so it would fit in a military cargo pocket. And if you want a free copy of the ebook version, just go to freerbooklet.com. It's there on the screen. Free letter R booklet.com. It's about 52 pages. You can read it in about a half hour or about 55 minutes if you're me. And don't let the shortness take away from it, though. It's crammed with it punches you with resilience tactics. And that's exactly what I wanted out of it. Was short and powerful. You can take something away right now and apply it to your life and get an outcome.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you very much for sharing that for free with everyone, because I'm sure that everybody would love to read that. So tell us more about what happened. Tell us a little bit more about your story when you got hurt and how you moved through your process.
Yeah, I joined the military straight out of high school, out of Miami, Florida, and I went into the Army as a team leader, and I became a team leader in an infantry platoon with the Army's 10th Mountain Division. That's who I deployed to Afghanistan with back in 2006. While I was there, I was in 2 vehicles that were blown up and totally destroyed. The first was by a roadside bomb on April 18th of 2006. My vehicle ran it over, it blew it up. It was a double stack of anti-tank mines buried in the road. These are designed to destroy battle tanks. I was in a Humvee. There were 2 of them linked together. And I walked away from that one physically unscathed. I mean, I literally just opened my door and got out. I drug one other guy out of the vehicle who was catching on fire. He was half conscious. And then my gunner was also injured because he got boosted out of the turret, but then he came back down crashing into the vehicle. And the whole thing was just on fire. And thankfully, no follow-on ambushes took place, which is typical. Taliban would usually blow up a vehicle, then fire machine guns into the smoke as you're trying to get out. That did not happen, thankfully. And both guys who were injured returned to duty a month later.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, I mean, very resilient people. And very grateful for that. Nobody died that day. And then about 3 months later, on July 24th of 2006, I was the truck commander in the lead vehicle of about a 15 vehicle convoy going through Kandahar. And we were 2 miles away from Kandahar airfield, which was our final destination. And a white minivan pulled out in front of my vehicle. And we didn't think anything of it, but he was going slow. So what do you do when somebody pulls out in front of you on the highway and they go slow? You pull out on their left and you just pass right up by them, don't you? Well, as we got right up next to him, and I'm in the front passenger seat, we're right up next to him, passing him on this 2-lane highway. The whole thing just exploded. And it was a minivan being driven by a suicide bomber. And it was about from me to that door, if not closer. Thankfully, I had bulletproof glass for windows and armor plating all over the Humvee. But I was still injured. I was burned 2nd degree on my face and neck, a little bit of 3rd degree on the back of my neck. I had third degree burns on both my hands. I don't know how well you can see the scarring, but those are skin grafts from, different parts of my body. And yeah, I woke up laying in a ditch on the side of the road, had no idea where I was. And suicide bomber was the only guy who died that day, thankfully. So that's why my Purple Heart plate says nice try. It's just like my way of saying, hey, good job, buddy. I mean, he came out there to die, and that's exactly what he did. And after that, I spent 14 months at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. Burn treatment, reconstructive surgery. Worst experience of my life. They had to scrape the burned skin off my hands and my face and neck with razor blades while I was awake. And that was the worst part of the whole experience. And it was a total breaking point in my life. I prayed to die. I did not get that prayer answered. I just knew if I was unconscious or asleep, I wouldn't be in pain. And I didn't care if that meant I was asleep or dead. It didn't matter. I just wanted the pain to be gone. And, I meet a lot of people in my travels as I speak. They've gone through things in their own life and they're not being scraped, but, they've been through things in their own life and they're just praying to die every day. And I'll tell you this, though, when you're in that moment, you're not seeing the big picture, because our lives are a story within a greater story being told. And there's so much good in my life, my family's life, and other people's lives that I've been able to see because I did not get what I wanted when I was in that fog of war and things were not clear. And so I've been very, very grateful for the fact that I didn't get what I wanted when it hurt the worst.
Wow. What is it, just listening to hear you say that in your story? So in that time when they were doing that and it felt, with the razor blade, what were you telling yourself? What were you thinking to yourself besides, I don't want to make this through? What were you telling yourself as to why you would want to?
Well, the only thought going through my head was, like, my instinct was to fight them, because, they had me on this metal table. They got my clothes off. They're spraying me with water and they're just going over my hands and my face and neck. My instinct was to fight them and resist it, because obviously it hurts. But inside my head, and my next thought was, if I resist them, it's only going to last longer. And so the fastest, easiest way out of it was to just lay there and take it, which is not an easy way out. The head nurse said they'll do it as fast as they can. He walked up to me and said, hey, we're going to do this as quickly as possible, so it'll be as painless as possible. And I didn't even know they were going to do that to me. And I'm glad nobody told me, but it took about 30 minutes.
And no pain medication? They don't give you anything for that to help?
They gave me fentanyl, which I guess is like a morphine type drug. All it really did was it made me feel like I was floating a little bit, but it did absolutely nothing for the pain. And you're scraping, 2nd degree burns, you're scraping nerves off of these burns, and 3rd degree, the nerves are gone. It was intense.
And, I just want to say, as bad as it was for you, it was worse. It was so much worse for them. I used to work at Camp Pendleton, and I dealt with burns and other wound care like that. It is horrible to do that, especially being on that side, inflicting that pain on somebody like that. So I understand what I've never been on that where you were, but I know as the person doing it, it is horrible.
So. Yeah, and I've talked to nurses about that, and I commend the nurses all the time, especially the ones in the burn ward. I can do infantry stuff. I can kick indoors and, go pick fights with bad guys. That's what we did. But to have to scrape someone's skin off with razor blades and torture them to keep them alive, that takes a special, strong, emotional person. And I don't think, unless it was absolute survival, I don't think I could do that. And there's a lot of great men and women who do that every day. And I know they deal with things because of the fact they had to help guys like me, because that's not a normal thing to have to torture somebody to save them. But I would have died of infection, guaranteed, if they didn't do it.
How many times did you have to go through that?
Luckily, only once. Typically, they have to do it several times. But for some reason, that's why they keep you awake. They don't want to put you under anesthesia several times in a close proximity time frame, because you might not wake up. You might slip into a coma.
Wow. So as you're going through those experiences, I'm going to back up a little bit. In combat, was there moments that, because I know that people have this, was there moments where you didn't think you were going to be laying in a burn ward getting scraped off and you thought it was over?
Well, I figured once the helicopter came and got me, the medevac helicopter picked me up, I just figured, they'd probably shower me off and rinse me off and, just kind of every day rinse the burns off and keep it wrapped. And, my driver was my medic, so that really came in handy. And he was a good dude, and still is. And I was very fortunate that he had knowledge enough to not tell me, what they were going to have to do, because he knew.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a good friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after that happened, how did you transition from being injured and moving forward with life?
It's an interesting question, and everybody's different. People, I never want this to come off wrong. I don't know how else to explain it, though. I never really felt sorry for myself. My whole mindset was always, it was really just, I'm hurt, but I'm alive. My body will heal, and I'll get better, and I'll be fine. And what are we doing now? Like, what's the next thing? Like, let's get doing something. I know a lot of people handle tragedy and trauma in very different ways. You never know how someone's going to handle it. And there's no right or wrong way to respond to trauma. Everyone's just different. Some people are cowering in a corner, shaking, and they can't wrap their head around what happened to them. I'm not that way, so I don't understand that. Just I get it, but I don't fully understand it, just because I'm wired differently. Fortunately for me, having the kind of mindset I do, which I don't know if it's inherent, or I don't like to think I was born with it, but I've had some pretty bad life experiences before the military. I think that kind of hardened me emotionally, and I think that worked to my benefit. And, it's interesting, though. I always believed, here's the one thing, I was always willing to see good things come out of this, even when all the evidence pointed in the opposite direction. Think about it. Like, what good comes out of a situation like that? Right. Typically, you really don't hear about that. But I was always open to seeing what might happen, or what maybe I can do with it, or something good that could come out of it. 5 months later, a guy who was a burned up Vietnam vet, who got burned in Vietnam horribly, came to Brooke Army Medical Center, and his name was Dave Reaver. And he told his story. He made us all laugh. Me and 20 or 30 other guys were blown up, shot up, burned up, missing legs, arms, eyes, bullet holes in us. And he's telling this story, and he's disfigured still from the burns. And he is just cutting us up with laughter and humor. Him and I connected afterwards. We became really good friends. And 15 years ago, he mentored me. He said, "Brian, I'll show you how to do something with this." And I said, "Okay, what?" I saw a guy who knew where I was. He was hospitalized at Brooke Army Medical Center back in 1969. And I knew he knew where I was, and he knew how to get out, at least more than I did, because he had been married to the same woman for, they just celebrated like 50 years last year. And he's wildly successful as an author and speaker. He has a good life. He's done life right in so many ways. And I thought, this guy can help me. I connected on that level. And I'll tell you right now, he was the single greatest contributing factor to my ability to transcend that horrible injury as quickly as I did. It isn't because I'm special. I had somebody who understood me, and they knew a way out, and I was willing to hear and listen.
And you do that for others and other veterans now.
Yeah, if they're willing to listen. And a lot of them aren't. I don't claim to know everything, but I can share what my experience was, and you can take that, and hopefully it applies to your life in some productive way.
Yeah, absolutely. So while you were just speaking about that and what you felt inside, what do you hear from veterans on the other side where they do feel worthless and that they're not going to make it and that they need help?
Well, if you know you need help, like you just took the first biggest step. And I think with a lot of people, I think their biggest enemy internally is their perspective. I experienced what I call an extremely redemptive perspective on my injury. Remember the Dave guy I told you about, the guy who mentored me, one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
He called me a month later. He said, "Hey, I'm speaking at this military base right outside of Manhattan, Kansas." And I said, "Gross, but okay." He said, I want you there. I didn't know I had to ask for permission. He's like, "Oh, I said, "I don't really have money for a plane ticket right now." He says, "I'll pay your way. I'll pay everything." I said, "I'll be there." And I showed up. He was halfway through his talk, big patriotic rally. This gymnasium had 3,000 people packed into it, standing room only. I didn't even realize that many people had filled in. But halfway through his talk, he called me up there. I still had burn bandages on. And he said, "Brian," he handed me the microphone. He said, "Take 2 minutes. Tell them about yourself." Now, this is important because I basically said, "Hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up. I guess I'm still here for a reason. Go for it," or something stupid. It was probably not motivational. It was probably pathetic. But I got off stage and everything changed. The linchpin of my life, the turning point, the thing that changed everything took place when I stepped down off those 3 steps off the stage. And here's what it was. This young lady who was about 21, about my age at the time, she walked up to me and she said, "Brian," didn't even tell me her name. She said, "I was raped. I was molested growing up. I was abused as a child and as a teenager. And my boyfriend was abusive and he just broke up with me. And I tried to kill myself, but I failed." And I'm thinking to myself in that moment, what do you say to somebody like that? Like, I'm sorry to hear that happen to you. But she tagged this on the end of it. And this was everything. She said, "But if God can get you through all that, I think he can get me through this. If you can survive all that, I think I can get through this." And that changed my perspective. Now, listen, for years, I didn't understand what happened in that moment. I was just hooked. Like heroin, I was hooked. I wanted to talk to more people like her. I got hooked on having that effect on people. I didn't know all along it was healing me. By the way, it was. But it was helping other people. What I did learn, and I know I'm getting kind of long-winded here. I learned
Keep going.
About 5 years after that, I read a book. It's in here somewhere. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was a Nazi prison camp survivor. He was a psychiatrist, extremely brilliant person. He lost his whole family, his elderly parents, his pregnant wife, all wiped out in Auschwitz and these concentration camps. And he said when he got out, when it came to the topic of suffering, this is what he said in that book. He said, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. What happened when I stepped down off that stage and that young lady walked up to me? I found a sense of meaning in my suffering. That's what happened. And it came because I wasn't internalizing it. I wasn't thinking about poor me. or all my doubts and all my fears and all my what ifs. I just talked to a lady who's like, hey, I probably won't go home and put a pistol in my mouth tonight or drink a bottle of pills because you shared your story. And so that began the healing journey. That's why I write. That's why I speak. It's always has been. That's always been the fuel. I didn't know anyone did this. Then I found out years later, there's like speaker training and all this other crap you probably shouldn't pay attention to. Like I never learned how to do it right, because, by the way, those are all marketers teaching those things. They're not like, well, a lot of them are not very heartfelt people who, have been doing it a long time, but there's some good ones out there.
The scammers. That's what we call them, the scammers.
There just is, and you know what's sad? One of the greatest compliment I've always gotten over the past 15 years, people say, Brian, you're just so real. Now we're just having a conversation here. You saw me speak in Orlando. Mm-hmm. I didn't talk any different than what I am right now. How sad is it we live in a world that's so fake that when someone's just being honest in themselves, people notice? Well, you know what? That's a superpower that you and I have, because people are expecting a sale. They're expecting someone to try and, get their TV preacher voice on or their professional speaker voice on. People just want what's real. People are struggling. They just want someone who's going to be honest and real with them. And I had someone do that for me, and I met that girl, and I shifted my perspective. I didn't even know it, honestly. I didn't choose it. It came out of me. I didn't know it was in there. And so I can't even really take full credit for that.
So what I'm hearing is everybody needs to share their story to start the healing, right?
To an extent, and when you're ready, and for a reason. In fact, that's a great point, though. My wife is up in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now doing some humanitarian stuff. She was abused as a kid. And you know what? Yesterday, she shared her story for the first time publicly in front of people.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you're right. I think we all should, in the way that comes natural to us. And it's in a way that serves and helps other people when we are ready.
Well, I'm just saying you shouldn't hide from your story. What you're hiding, you need to get out so that you can heal, because a lot of people keep it in and they don't heal from it. I know a Marine who figured out what he was supposed to do in life through his story. Right, Mohawk?
I feel like you're driving towards me.
Right. I mean, it's these things that happen to us is, they say you find your way along your way, right? It happens along the way. It happens to you. Both you guys have had things that happen to you that you've used to help you grow, help you heal, and now help a lot of other people heal. And that's why I want people to be able to share their story. And that's one of the reasons we started Helping the Brave, was to get people to share their story so people understand you're not alone. One of the biggest problems with most vets is we don't ask for help. We don't want, we're afraid to. It's we're weak if I ask for help.
You're trained not to.
Right. Yeah.
I will accomplish the mission at all costs, though I be the lone survivor. It's part of the creed. And then you get out and they go, asking for help is strong. And you go, no, it isn't. That's not what I was told. And that wasn't concreted into my mind in combat.
Right.
But do you know what I always say with that? We had air support on a lot of our missions. And if we were getting overrun by Taliban and we had A-10 Warthogs on hand flying overhead, if somebody said, hey, call in the air support, we're getting overrun. And the LT goes, no, we don't want higher up to think that, we don't want command to think we can't handle ourselves when it gets bad. That would be stupid. Mm-hmm. Stupid. But people do it every day. And veterans do it every day. You weren't taught. See, nobody translates this stuff when we get out of the military. You weren't taught not to ask for help. You were trained to call in air support when you had to have it. You were trained to call on your sniper team when you needed them for assistance, for help to accomplish the mission. Nobody taught us to go out there nobody ever taught you to go outside the wire by yourself. But we do that because nobody translates what we learn into how it applies to civilian life. That's one of the big blockages. And when I use that close air support example, most veterans I talk to, they finally start to get it because it's in a way we understand, and nobody in the right mind would not use the air support if you had a superior enemy about to overrun you. But people have enemies in their lives every day, in their families, in their minds, and society, and they're just getting railroaded. And then they wonder what's going on. They keep getting ambushed, but they won't ask for air support. and it's there.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the multiple reasons why this was created, was not only to share your story, but you, by Brian sharing your story, give someone else permission to share theirs, but also showing that there is air support. I love that example. That's a fantastic example, because and that's one of the things I want to start getting into with you is what are ways that you are working to help people realize that there is air support. And I'm not saying to anyone listening, I'm not saying go buy everything that Brian has.
Hey, you can do that.
I mean, if it helps you, do it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, find what works for you. And Brian kind of said this in response to Ed. Right now may not be the time to share your story, but make sure you know where the help is and where those forums are when you are ready.
Yeah. And let me be honest, you're never going to think you're ready.
No.
Like, I didn't actually know Dave was going to pull me up on stage in front of those 3,000 people. I thought I was there just to like see what he does, or I don't know. It was like fastball in the face from 10 feet away. Like, think fast. You know, did you get butterflies? No, there wasn't time. It was like, here you go. And so you're not always going to be ready.
Yep.
But when you are able to share it, you'll be ready enough. You'll be what you need to be in that moment.
Well said.
Yeah. Because if he would have asked you ahead of time, hey, I'm going to have you out and I'm going to have you on stage, you would have said no. Right. So that's my point, when it's like, share your story. You might not think you're ready. You were not ready at the time, but then you were like, wow, I did it. And now I'm ready to share it to everyone.
Yeah. And after I did it, I realized I was more than ready. I just didn't know I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. Do you have what other stories can you tell us for all the veterans listening of other stories that have really impacted you in your life?
I mean, I've always been very attracted to people who overcame ridiculous odds, people who overcame whatever it was. People, a lot of times they want to compare. I'll literally have people tell me, you know, man, I was talking to a lady yesterday at Buffalo Wild Wings. She was my server. She got ran over by a monster truck. A monster truck. And she lifted up her pant leg and showed me her shin, all mangled, and there's a steel rod. Like, legit, this lady got ran over by a freaking monster truck.
How? How does that happen?
I don't know the whole story, but this is the kind of woman that I could tell by talking to her, you probably wouldn't want to get into it with her because she's hard as nails for a reason. And that's probably why she's still walking around on her feet all day. And she was awesome. But people have experiences like that, or they were abused or something horrible happened. And they'll go, oh, but you know, I've never been through what you've been through, Brian. And I'll be like, dude, like I would rather go back to Afghanistan and get blown up again than go through what some of these people went through. Because one of the biggest injuries a lot of people are facing is the mental one or the moral one. You can take both my legs before you take my mind. Like, I can get prosthetics for that. But if a person loses their mind, it's like the steering wheel just gets hijacked and just gets cranked to the right. And then it can go right off the cliff. But, you know, you can be missing a couple wheels and be grinding on sparks at least until you come to a stop.
His analogies are amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like he's a speaker or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Like I've done this a few thousand times or something.
Yeah. So what's next for you with everything you've done?
No, you know, I've been speaking on resilience for about the past 13, 14 years, and I've loved it because I see it help people. More recently, this past year, my wife and I launched a program called Marriage Battle Plan because we got married 3 months before I left for Afghanistan. So 99.9% of our marriage has been war and post-deployment. And I'm not going to lie to you. We are happily married. We're not just getting by. And everyone's different. Some people marry the wrong person. I believe that. You marry somebody, it's just rough. We're not perfect. But there's so much I learned in the military that we apply, especially when we communicate. Like Marriage Battle Plan, we created that to help married couples communicate more clearly so they can understand each other and their marriage will make it and prosper. They're not just dragging by. So many people are attacking each other like their spouse is the problem. Meanwhile, they're not actually seeing the real enemy. They're doing this. They're shooting at each other when the real enemy is out here. And when you are able to identify what that real enemy is, you can get shoulder to shoulder and concentrate both your fire on that exact enemy and destroy it even faster. That's what you do. You can paint the target, so to speak, is what we say in the military. And then the planes drop bombs, the planes do gun runs, our snipers hit it, our machine guns hit it, and there's nothing left of that enemy very quickly. But as long as we're fighting amongst ourselves, the enemy, they don't even really have to attack us. They just wait because we'll destroy ourselves. Can you imagine a platoon of soldiers like fighting amongst themselves in the mountains of Afghanistan? And the enemy's looking at it going, our job's easy. Well, that happens in marriages. And so we created this because what I did is I took our mission planning process, because mission planning in the military, you have to be able to very simply and effectively communicate the key aspects of a mission to anywhere from 5 to 500 people, whether it's a squad or it's an entire battalion or division. That takes some knowing. Well, there's a process, and I adapted that process to a marriage relationship or just between two people in general. And we just happen to be doing it through marriage so that people can simply understand what's the real enemy in your marriage. I mean, if you've had the same argument over and over again and you walk away going, all right, well, whatever, everything's fine, I'll deal with, like, no, it's not fine. Like, that enemy is entrenched. And until you identify what the enemy is and who your allies are and what the steps are you're both going to take to defeat that thing and what's at stake if you don't, and what victory looks like, if you don't know some of these things, you're just going to get shot up. You're just going to keep getting ambushed. So we created that so people can communicate clearly so the marriages will prosper. And that's marriagebattleplan.com if you want to know anything about it.
Thanks for sharing.
It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
How many couples reach out to you for help?
Quite a few. Just kind of depends. It's funny. I've always said, it's a military themed, pretty masculine brand.
Right.
But our key demographic is actually women. You know why?
No, why?
Because men don't have any problems. Hey, man, how are you doing? Oh, I'm great, man. I'm great. Like, no, your wife hates you and your kids despise you. They can't handle being around you. Things aren't fine. We put on the front. What guy signs up for a marriage conference? But women will sign up and go, hey, we're going.
Ed.
We're good. Hey, I'm good. I finally learned.
I'm joking.
Happy wife, happy life. I don't have an issue on my side. So you can call my wife. I can give you the number if you want. It's easy.
Now, here's the thing.
No, we know you're good. You're a good man.
Your marriage doesn't have to be bad or in crisis to benefit from something like this. I tell people, if your marriage is good, you can make it even greater if you just learn a few more things to enhance that experience. So, attending it or getting it is no admission of I'm terrible at marriage or my marriage is in crisis. It's not at all. It's an enhancement is what it is. It's just another weapon in the arsenal.
Right. Well, any conference that you go to, as long as you learn something from, is important. That's what we do for business. We do to grow ourselves. There would be no reason not to do it for marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't see anybody out there teaching communication in marriage. And I didn't see them doing it from the perspective of battle-proven strategies that have been known to work for over 200 years. See, this isn't I didn't get the good idea fairy. I got a framework that's been forged over centuries when life and death is the consequence or the reward for winning or losing. So this isn't based on Brian's good idea. This is based on stuff that is proven to work. It filters everything out that shouldn't be there, and it keeps every piece in there that needs to be. And once you understand these, it's simple. And it can save your marriage.
That's incredible. So I want to shift a little bit, Brian, is this your full-time job, career, speaking in these classes and the things you do?
Yes, sir.
So if it is, then what was that transition like, going from service to whatever you did right after to turning this into a business? Because I think that's part of a lot of veterans are going down the entrepreneur path. What advice did you learn, and what was your experience like?
I was extremely fortunate. I called meeting my mentor, Dave. I'll call that the unicorn experience, because what happened for me just doesn't happen. Somebody that qualified, who'd been speaking 35 years, highly successful, had started multiple companies. I met him. He said, Brian, my headquarters, well, where I'm doing most of my stuff is in Colorado. He said, so if you want to work with me, move to Colorado. I'll hire you to work the ranch during the week, and I'll take you with me on the weekends for speaking, and I'll train you. And I said, okay. And so, I got out of the military, obviously with some disability issues from the blast and all the injuries cumulatively. And then I was working for him, and I was starting to speak, and actually found out I could actually make some money doing it, which was pretty unique. Nobody's tried to shoot me yet speaking. It's the greatest thing in the world, because my last job, it wasn't so much the case, but he helped me transition through that. So I always talk to people about the real entrepreneurs like you guys. like you guys are real entrepreneurs. Like I had this thing where I got real lucky with a piece. Everything wasn't lucky. I'll own the work I put in and the effort. But that meeting Dave, I heard a guy say one time, I think it was John Acuff, he said, you don't control the miracle. In my life, that was one experience where I did not choose or control that miracle. Our paths collided, and it was the right place, right time, right people, and I didn't make that happen. But what came of it completely didn't just change my life, it altered my family tree. I mean, that's how much difference one person can make if you're willing and open to hear them.
Yeah, but you did take the opportunity, right? That was the key right there, because you could have said, no, I'm not going to go move to Colorado and work your ranch. You took that opportunity and turned it into what you did. So that was all on you. So don't discount yourself for what you did. That was amazing what you did. Well, now, go ahead. I was going to say, are you doing that for other veterans? Or have you set up anything to help them along the way, how to get into this when?
Yeah, over the years, I've had a number of online speaking programs I've created. And I've been able to mentor a handful of veterans in speaking and doing what I do, just personally being able to. And that was actually the one condition Dave made me promise, because he never charged me a nickel. And he should have, and he could have. Most people do. Most people at that level as professional speakers would, oh my gosh, it'd be so much money. It'd be insane. But he said, I'll never charge you a nickel, but you have to promise me one thing. Someday when you're in a position where you can do for someone else what I'm doing for you, you have to promise me you'll do it. And I've done it about a dozen times at this point, and I love it. And so that's the caliber of somebody who came into my life and things changed.
That's fantastic. So anyone that's out there, Kristen, coming to you for the next question, because I know you've got lots for Brian here. Anyone that's out there watching this live, feel free to ask a question, join in. You've got some great comments here, Brian. There's a lot of strength in staying and looking for the positive. We all need to be willing to listen. So folks agree with you. James got some great quotes from Medal Honor recipients, some great stuff here. And Brian does have great analogies. more agreement out there. So Kristen, you're up.
Well, thank you. So talk to me a little bit about, and one of the things that I really admire about you is your drive, your everyday drive, and how you speak to people. And I watch all the communication, through the different social media platforms, but tell me a little bit about your drive and your why. Why do you do the things that you do?
My why has never changed. My why from the beginning has always been to help people win their battles. Whatever that looks like, that's the overall message of that's the overall. And I didn't even realize that. I said it for a long time. I didn't realize it was actually like my why, so to speak. But it's to help people win their battles. Everybody's facing a battle. And I've had a lot of training and real world experience when it comes to how to win a literal battle and what to do. And so I realized, I have some personal expertise there. I'm not the soldier of the fortune or nothing like that. But I lived in Afghanistan in the mountains, and we hunted Taliban, and they hunted us, and we had to plan and carry out missions. Well, everybody's dealing with enemies in their lives, and the principles don't change. And so being able to help people win their battles, again, it all started with that one young lady at that first event that I ever spoke at. That's my drive is to find people like her and to help them, and I do have days where I'm down and I don't do anything. I feel disconnected. and I should probably reach out more than I do. I have off days, but whenever I'm up doing something, talking, teaching, helping, I come alive. And I didn't really choose that, but when I do it, that's what comes out of me. And so how do you find that? There's techniques and ways, but I would just say, when I used it to help somebody else win their own battles, when I used my own life experience and pain that way, that's what redeemed my story.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if you want to see pictures, actually, if you're looking at my face going, this guy was burned, oh yeah, whole top layer of my face was burned off. If you go to blownupguy.com, that's my website. There's I think it's on the about page. If you scroll down toward the bottom, blownupguy.com. I'm a guy, I got blown up, so I just thought it would be funny. I actually looked blown up when I bought the website. I healed, thankfully, and I have a lot of friends who could also have that website, but I got it first. But if you go there, I think it's on the about page, you'll see the 2 trucks I was in. You'll see the picture of me right as they scraped me off the side of the road, where I have all the dirt and the blood just coming out everywhere. And then you'll see another picture where after they'd scraped me the first time.
They're definitely there.
Yeah. And if you're eating pasta, you're not eating pasta anymore after you look at it. So
that's why I'm not putting them on the screen.
He's like, they're definitely there. So have you ever had a veteran or any individual ask you how to recognize enemies in their life?
Yeah. And the way I determine that, most people look at the part of their life that's falling apart. They're looking at the explosion going off in their marriage, or they're looking at the thing. Well, the thing that most people call the enemy is not the enemy. It's the effect of the enemy. It's the evidence of the enemy's presence. The real enemy in almost any situation always lies just beneath the surface of the obvious thing you can see. It's the root. You see the tree, but the root is the enemy. And until you can keep chopping that thing off at the stem, but unless you uproot that whole dang system, in other words, go into the enemy's backyard and, shoot that place up and then tear down his swing set when you're done playing on it, like, that's what you got to do. And so, I mean, whatever issue it is you see in your life, that's an indicator, that's an effect of the enemy. It's not the enemy. And that's true in almost every single case I've ever talked to somebody about. And that's why it's so hard for a lot of people to get past things. They keep trying to just, knock down the symptom. It's like, no, you've got to do uprooting. You've got to take the whole place out. And, a lot of people, they just don't know that. They don't know that. And one reason they don't know it is because we all had this thing called the fog of war. Is you've been in war so long, you start to overlook things that should obviously be recognized as red flags or as things that can help you. But you in other words, you've been so close to it for so long, you overlook the obvious. And I'm guilty of this too, and I teach this. That's why you need to have other people in your life, your allies, your air support. Because the pilot flying the A-10 over your battlefield, he doesn't have to know what it's like to be a grunt on the ground like I was. He can see my battlefield from a different perspective that I can't. He can say, don't go over that ridge. There's 200 enemy over there. Go around this other way. Boy, it was good I listened to a guy who didn't know what it was like to be in my shoes, huh? That excuse just falls so flat. One of the reasons so many people can help us is because they're not affected by and inhibited by the same exact experience we had. Because of the fact they don't know what it's like, they can see things that we can't.
So true.
So be open. The only thing I had going for me, the only advantage I've ever had over anyone else is that I was willing and open to possibilities. I don't know enough to say I know enough or that I know it all. Nobody does. You don't know what you're right on the verge of. You don't know if you're about to bump into your Dave Reaver and it's about to shift your life and your family's life in a better direction forever. You don't know. I wasn't even supposed to be at the hospital the day I met him. I hated going there. And that day, I did not have an appointment. It literally caused me physical pain to go there that day. But look what happened. I could have easily said I'm not going, and nobody would have blamed me. But where would I be today? I wouldn't be talking to you. Who would I be? I don't know. That would have been because I made one decision that was seemingly insignificant at the time, and nobody would have blamed me for. What I would have missed out on this amazing life. I'll just be straight with you. I have a great life, and I have an awesome family and friends to do it with me. And I'm grateful for that. And I've had other people come into my life that made that possible. But I could have missed it. I could have missed it over and never knew I missed it. That's the saddest part. People have no idea what they miss. And that's why you got to get out there and talk to people and do things and learn and just be open.
I think that's it.
That's it.
How do you follow up on that?
Brian, how do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out? You've helped them. They've really felt you here today. What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm all over Facebook. Mostly I'm posting about Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin because I love classic rock.
You're not old enough to know that stuff.
No, I was born a generation late is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents grew up during the 60s and 70s, and I was born in the 80s, but that's all I heard growing up. So yeah. But no, I'm on Facebook. If you just put in like Brian C. If Brian Fleming, there's a bunch of people with that name. Brian C. Fleming or Brian Fleming Official, I think is the tag on the end of Facebook.com is Brian Fleming Official. But if you just Brian C. Fleming, if you go to my website, blownupguy.com, there's links, I think at the very bottom, and you can just click, it'll take you there. Same on LinkedIn, but I'm on Facebook. You send me a Facebook message, I'll answer it. So I'm not one of those guys who's out of touch and gives good advice, but I'm not too good to talk to somebody. So, and I stay busy, but I'll write you back. And so you never know what comes from that. I've mentored people who were injured in war like me because they reached out. I mean, I had a guy reach out a month ago and he booked his first event 2 days later. He'd never spoken before and he got paid for it.
Wow.
Yeah. I met him 2 days prior to that because he shot me just this random message. Hey, you probably won't respond to this. Now the guy's a speaker. Like he's doing it. Like what it took me like 8 months to do, like he did in like 2 days. And he's doing a great job. He was a Black Hawk pilot. Adam Jones is his name. And so you never know. If I don't know the answer to something, if I can help you, I probably know someone who can, or I can connect you. I'm happy to do that. That's what my life is about. I'm going to die one day. We all are. And I'm not going to regret my life. I'm not going to look back and regret not doing things for other people because that's where I get the most sense of meaning.
Brian, thank you for sharing your story today. I really enjoyed it. I'm not kicking you out. I just want to let you know that ahead of time.
Yeah. No worries. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you so much. I really appreciate you fighting for our freedom and allowing us to do the things that we do every single day. I think there's a lot of people who don't realize the sacrifice that our military and our veterans go through to make sure that we're safe. So thank you very much for that. And to Matt and Ed as well. All of y'all.
I'm going to echo that, and not only thanks for your sacrifice, Brian, but the fact that you didn't just go on and live your life as a disabled, blown up guy. You actually turned it into back where you are still serving probably more than you ever did in the service. So thanks for you finding your grit and pushing on.
Well, thank you.
I've
had some help and I've had some encouragement and I've made decisions, and that's something we can all do and that we all have.
Definitely. Well, anyone got anything else? We're good.
Any final words for our veteran viewers out there and listeners?
Or any viewers. We're inclusive.
All viewers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on a battlefield, no battle has to last forever. And don't be your own worst enemy. Don't make excuses for not getting the help you need to be better and to really live the life that I believe you were created to live, that you're here for. You can unlock that very easily. You just can't see it when you're fighting a battle. So don't make excuses. Don't stay home. Don't stay by yourself. Don't drink your life away. There's way more out there. And you might not even know what that looks like yet. And you don't need to. What you need to do is continually take your next step forward. And it's funny how in the world, a lot of things just start to kind of happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. You guys are great interviewers. Yeah.
It was all Kristen today.
Oh, definitely. So thanks for joining everyone. And Brian, hang on with us. And